Hey everyone, welcome to Make Your Peace, a 4YE podcast about Wynonna Earp. I'm Catherine Meushaw.
And I'm Lara Hayes.
And today we're discussing Season 1, Episode 7, Walking After Midnight. We will be having a spoiler-free discussion and then a spoiler-filled one. So if you're new to Wynonna Earp and don't want to be spoiled, don't worry. We'll have a spoiler warning before that section. So we'll wrap up our spoiler-free section and then we'll go on to our spoiler-filled one. So knock everything out at once. And once again, I don't have anything handy. So, Lara, what was this episode about?
I've got it. Now the protector of the skull, Waverly decides to throw a party at the homestead. An angry 100-year-old witch quickly closes in on the Earp sisters.
Where was that pulled from?
The episode summary on Netflix?
Okay. No, I'm just curious because the wording almost kind of makes it seem like she threw a party because she had the skull.
It was a skull party.
Like, doesn't it though? Doesn't it kind of seem like the way they worded it? Doesn't it kind of seem like that? Or is that just me?
You know, I don't want to jump the gun here, but I do think that we just figured out the episode blurb for this one. It's a skull party.
I'm going to email that to myself right now because there's nothing
get it. Yeah.
than emailing myself the most random things. All right, so I can't imagine where you'd like to start discussing the episode.
You know, I'm gonna start with the title, but this is another instance where I love the source song so much I can't really deconstruct the title beyond the song. This is another one from Patsy Cline, Walking After Midnight. It's one of my favorites by her.
All right. Well, that's good because it's a pretty good episode. So we got some really fun storylines and some fun moments in this episode. So where do you want to start?
Oh, I'm going to start with a tiny lament. Technically, there's no body part before the credits, but we did get a lot of eye blood between Maddie and the Stone Witch, so I'm counting it.
I'll allow it.
Like, that's a lot of eyeball hemorrhaging.
I will allow it. You get points for the hemorrhaging. I will allow it.
Yes. Okay. All right. That was my chief concern this episode.
See, when you started off talking about, you had a tiny lament, I thought you were going to, lament the fact that we lost Maddie. And then I was going to be like, that's not really a tiny one, Lara.
No, I'm very sad about that. And we're going to talk about it later.
We can talk about it now.
We can talk about it now.
We have no rules in this podcast.
That's right.
Well, okay, we have like a couple, but it's our podler and we'll do what we want.
It's true.
So yeah, we did lose Maddie. It sucks because she's a good character and she had, I think, a lot more to give and because I think she could have been a good source for information and just a good ally. You've got this witch or however, she never really defined herself, but she's a magic user of sorts. And, it's a damn shame to lose her.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think Maddie was such a good. I've never been so sad to see eye hemorrhaging, and I've seen quite a bit of it with the things I watch. But she fought so hard to keep Waverly safe, and she clues us in on Constance's plan. Mm-hmm. So not only will the completed skeletons bring the Stone Witch's sons back, which is what we thought this was all about, but with them, somehow she's going to be able to free the revenants from the confines of the Ghost River Triangle. So everything she was warning Doc about was actually very important.
Yeah.
But still, like you said, I loved her as a character. I think you bring up a really good point. I think she could have been a tremendous ally. She does seem to have quite a bit of knowledge at her disposal. So it was just all around a shame to lose her.
Mm-hmm. I'm sitting here like nodding with what you are saying as if you can see me. So
I do that all the time.
I had to say that. I'm just like sitting here like, yeah. And that reminded me I had a section or a spoiler thing. But yeah, and I mean, it is interesting that one of the things she tells Constance, when Constance asks who has the skull, she calls Waverly the girl that's finally going to end you. And I find that interesting because, you know, like, the focus is, we've talked about this before, I think the focus is so much on Wynonna and her role as the heir, you know, and Waverly still sometimes gets kind of, you know, underestimated and stuff like that. But here, you know, oh, she's going to finally end the Stone Witch, according to Maddie. So, you know, I like that line.
I actually have an identical note. Yeah, I do. It's the exact same point too. It's usually what the focus is normally on Wynonna. That's fine. It's her show. Mm-hmm. But I do wonder what I feel like, you know, we had that moment with Maddie where she sort of read dolls, right? And she was like, you're fighting this battle, blah, 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 whatever. So not to blah, blah, blah over that, but, you know, we recap
yeah.
it. So go back and listen. But yeah, so I wonder, it left me wondering like what Maddie saw in Waverly, especially because, oh, never mind, that's a spoiler. But yeah, so I wonder like, I wonder like what she saw in her and so same note.
Make sure you put that in your spoiler section.
Yeah, you're right.
Put your note down.
Okay, I've got it.
Excellent. Okay. So one of the other things I like that they did with Maddie here is, you know, one of the things that Constance does, because when she first comes to Maddie's in the, you know, the circle of salt, and, you know, it was poor planning not having any food or drink or anything. Like, come on, Maddie. But no, one of the things they set up here is, you know, Constance offers to cure Maddie's breast cancer.
Yeah.
Like she mentions, and I like that parallel with Doc that we get. You know, it's, you know, Maddie is dying. She's terminal. That's the implication, especially if she probably doesn't, like, she's probably not getting radiation treatments and stuff like that. So she resists Constance's offer to cure her because it comes at too high of a cost. And, like, you know, you had parallel that with Doc, who was also dying of TB and, you know, made that deal with her to live. So it's an interesting, I enjoy that parallel to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I didn't pick up on that.
It just, like, I had a random note about her breast cancer, and then I was like, oh, wait, brain, because that's how my brain works sometimes. It's like the thoughts come later. It makes sense from my random notes. Yeah, and then Maddie gives Doc the tools to kill Constance, but tells him basically to be patient, you know, to not go after her that night and to kind of protect Waverly and the skull and everything. And of course, Doc is, you know, too wrapped up in his own need for vengeance to actually listen to her.
Yeah, he completely disregards it. And, like, it's funny because you kind of come from this, like, high with Doc, you know, like, he shows up at the party and it's, you know, that very funny line, you know, don't be cross, I got wood.
I love that entrance
I do too.
So much. It makes me laugh every time.
Me too. I had that written down. I loved it. But, you know, so we get this fun moment with him, and then he sticks around and he's playing poker at the saddest bachelorette party in history with the worst people. And then, you know, so you've got all these, like, warm, fuzzy feelings for him. And then, you know, Maddie is dying in the shed, and he completely disregards her warnings and puts Waverly, you know, in harm's way. I mean, you know, so on the one hand, yeah, you know, he traded blows on Waverly's behalf with horrible people and their backhanded comments, but then he absolutely uses her as bait. Yeah,
and I think one of those, like, Waverly, this is such a good Waverly episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because you get to see, you know, her friends. Now, I do like Chrissy. I do like Chrissy Nedley. Because she has, especially on a rewatch, she has a lot of really great moments.
Yeah.
And she does set up kind of a nice foil to Stephanie.
Yes.
And it's going to be so much fun bitching about Stephanie because that's actually my older sister's name. So she doesn't listen to this. It's fine.
Don't say anything you can't take back.
She doesn't listen to this. It's fine. None of my family does. It's fine. But no, so she has set up a nice foil, and it's like, I think you appreciate her more on a rewatch because you're so focused on how awful they're being, or like Stephanie's being. But I really enjoy episodes where where Waverly gets to show off how smart she is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, and I like it when she owns it. And it's also like kind of, you know, she did this to throw, And I was very confused, side note, because they kept calling it an engagement party, but it was a bachelorette party. Like, it was you don't have a girls only night where, the bridesmaids dresses are already picked out and all that stuff for an engagement party. Engagement parties for the couple. It's a bachelorette party. It's still a sad party, but it is a bachelorette party. It's like, that bothered me because they kept calling it an engagement party. And I was like, no, it's not.
I didn't really think about that, but I wonder if it's a Canadian thing. Like, what if it's the same thing? Do we have any Canadian listeners? Can somebody tell us?
Yes, please correct us. And if that's how you all do it, then
we stand corrected. But that's fine. I'm just like,
I don't know. I still think that's weird. No, I also, like, I had a lot of questions about, like, they're random, and apparently this is a night for me going on little rants, but because it's like, well, you have that moment where Chrissy is, kind of apologetic about Waverly missing out on shopping for the bridesmaids dresses, but, like,
right.
It's kind of a crappy thing to do, and, like, how does that work? What was Steph's plan? Was she just going to be like, oh, I guessed on your sizes? So, like, because you have to go get fitted. Everybody has to go get fitted. So, like, she would have had to go get fitted at some point. So, like, I don't know. Like, that bothered me. So that's my MIDI. That's not how this works rant.
I mean, this is wild speculation, but Steph seems like the kind of person who would skip out on the dress shopping, right, and go without Waverly, and then let Waverly throw her a bachelorette party because she offered, and then also, like, sit her down and be like, oh, honey, you're not standing up in the wedding. I can't have an Earp up there. You know what I mean?
You are 100% correct about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have a very, very good point.
It wouldn't surprise me.
No.
Ooh, I'm getting so mad at this fictional character right now.
I hate her. No, because she's really awful, but I do like, because we got to see Waverly, last episode we got to see Waverly ditch Champ, who was treating her poorly. And, Waverly got to own herself and really be, like, hey, I deserve better and stuff like that. And she gets kind of that same moment here with her friends. It's like, you're not treating me right. And, sucks to suck. You just got killed. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. But yeah, I'm not really upset to see her get killed. It's a little satisfying when it happens. But it's just, she's such an unlikable character. And it just makes you, like, really happy that Waverly kind of, you get to get so many moments, and she's got so many good, like, the insults and stuff like that. And like you mentioned, Doc got a few in. So yeah, this is a really, really good Waverly episode. But
it is. And it's funny, like, how many sides it comes from. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not all Waverly being amazing. And I mean, she is, but we get a lot of it from, we get that line from Maddie saying, the girl who's going to stop you, that's the girl that has the skull. We get it from Nicole in one of my absolute favorite moments. And it's one of, if we have listeners who are listening right now, who've listened to our later episodes, like, I talk about it quite a bit with Waverly, but Nicole basically sums up everything I have to say about Waverly to Wynonna, and it's spot on. But basically, she says Waverly is at a crossroads, and that Waverly is absolutely somebody who has spent her life tailoring who she is to please the people that are around her, and it's an especially amazing line coming from Nicole, who makes heart eyes at her every chance she gets, but also
hot eyes.
Yeah, hot eyes. Sorry. Forgive me. But it's also amazing that it's, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's one of the reasons that I love Nicole, because she just lays it all out for you right there. Mm-hmm. She's got this deep understanding from heavily, crushing on Waverly. And she's got this outsider perspective of, who she is and, like, where she's at and that sort of thing. And it's something that we see Waverly struggle against continuously. But the great thing about having this line in this episode is that we see Waverly, last episode we see her dump Champ. In this episode, we see her stand up to, to Stephanie and, just sort of cut this toxic person out of her life or just shut her down. She's like, you're not going to talk about me this way. Like, yes, I like these things. Like, yes, I'm weird. Like, yes, I'm super smart, and like, get out of my face about it. And so it was really wonderfully layered. You got so many observations about Waverly, and you saw all of them coming true.
Yeah. And I mean, like with that, cause you also get them from, Chrissy. She's another person that you get them from, and, cause she mentioned, she trusts Waverly in a crisis without question. Like, she's like, yeah, I trust you. I know you're a good person. It's like, I remember that time you beat up Champ when he was picking on me and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
And she takes the time to tell Waverly that Willow would be proud of her and that she knows Wynonna is.
Yeah.
And I think especially like, that's another one that's like so important because Chrissy grew up with Waverly. So she knows the relationship that Waverly, had and has with her sisters and stuff like that. So, I appreciate that. So going along with what you're saying is, Chrissy's another person who gives us that nice, like, hey, this is kind of another Waverly thing. So.
And going along with what you just said and staying on the topic of Waverly, I think the most important gem that we get like from Waverly about how she sees herself happens at the end of the episode when Waverly tells Doc, "You're the scorpion, I'm the frog, Google it," which is actually really awesome. It's a fable. It's a fairly recent one, circa like 1950 something, but similarly, it's actually very recent, but it's based on fables or parables from as far back as like ancient Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
But basically in this story, a scorpion asks a frog to carry it across a river, and the frog hesitates. It's afraid it's going to get stung because that's a scorpion. But the scorpion argues that if it stung the frog, then they would both drown. So considering this, the frog agrees, but midway across the river, the scorpion does sting the frog, dooming them both. And when the frog asks the scorpion why, the scorpion replies that it's in its nature to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So the fable is about the nature of people and human nature, right? But, told through animals. And Waverly is saying, I'm the helpful frog. I'm the helpful, trusting frog who let you in, and she's telling Doc that he's the scorpion. And she's also telling him that that's why she doesn't hate him. This betrayal, disregarding Maddie's advice and dangling Waverly in front of the Stone Witch. She's saying, it's in your nature to use me as bait, and it's in my nature to help you.
Yeah.
It's in my nature to be the patsy that you play.
Because like the second he goes up, kudos to him for walking up to actually own it instead of pretending he didn't pull a really crappy thing. And, right away, Waverly's like, I know what you did. Like, and straightforward. So, thank you. I actually, cause I'm familiar with the fable, cause it comes up it comes up every so often in various pop culture, but I did not realize it was from like the 50s. So that's kind of, that's a fun fact.
At least the fable that she's referring to and the fable that we recite to each other and that we often see in pop culture is actually super recent.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Because, what you just recited, it's basically, it's what I'm sure anybody who is familiar with the scorpion and the frog would know that. It's the whole thing is, it's in my nature. That's so.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for that fun fact. Because I didn't know that.
You're welcome.
And I probably should have put in a note to look that up, but
I was all over it, girl.
Yes, I thank you. I'll keep the continuity.
Please.
Oh, and I know I glossed over you talking about Nicole and Waverly. I did not. That's still lots of, I love Nicole, and I just have a note here that says hot, and I showed it to you, but I love Nicole in this episode about like what you said. It's just the way she talks about Waverly and just, the smile when she's talking about Waverly. I love her so much with a fiery passion.
I do too. And I live for Kat and Mel's dynamic. Like, we really needed this episode so much. We needed to get these two characters together, and they're just so hilarious together. They're so outstanding. And to be able to kind of flip from this, buddy, like palling around, midnight trips to the morgue, super drunk, to, like flipping and like suspecting each other and accusing each other of things, all this stuff. And to do it also seamlessly, it was a joy to watch. I really, really love this episode. I think it shows them off, beautifully.
Yeah. And Nicole and Wynonna, bro TP, like I love them. And it's like, there's so many little things. It's like, the top shelf comment, even like when Wynonna leans forward to get the picture off the floor and like Nicole pulling her back up by her belt.
Yeah. I thought that was funny too.
Like, I love that. It's just, they have such great chemistry together.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're so good together. They have, and it is nice to see Nicole interacting with somebody who isn't Waverly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant by like, we needed this at exactly this moment, kind of a thing. Like it's been too long that she's kind of just been popping up and really only getting a chance to interact with Waverly. Like, especially, Wynonna is the most important person in Waverly's life. Like we need to see how they are in a room together, right?
Yeah. And even like it kind of, we've got this, obviously Nicole has feelings for Waverly, but like, let's give her more substance. Let's do something else with her. And I appreciate that. And I do like how, like what you were saying about like, they kind of rode a little wave here with, with, like, let's have this really great moment. And then all the suspicion, because this episode is really the first one where you get kind of like that moment where you're like, oh no, is there's something up with Nicole.
Right.
Because we know she's new to town.
Right. Can she be trusted? Yeah.
Yeah. And, there's that awful cliffhanger at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Where it looks like Nicole and Wynonna were taken. So, yeah, it's just, I do enjoy that because there is like, I remember watching it and going like, it's one of those where we're all ready with the I trusted you gif, or like we were rooting for you gif. Like we're all ready for that. Watching this episode and when that suspicion is raised, it's like, oh no, Nicole, what are you doing? So yeah, I love her.
I love her too. And I live for that last shot of Nicole and Waverly smiling at each other in front of the homestead. Cause there's so much there that they managed to convey without saying anything at all.
Some of my last couple of notes as I was taking notes, I have Wynonna and Nicole at the end because I like that moment, and Waverly and Nicole at the end because, yeah, you're right. It is just that smile and wave and everything. It's just like, it's so good. Mm-hmm. That look is good. And like I said, just back to the Wynonna and Nicole, I like that moment too, where, Wynonna's like, hey, I'll tell you what you need to know. Screw my boss. And, you deserve it. So I like that. I like that they seem to be working stuff out. But yeah, I love Nicole so much. I've missed her.
I have too.
It's been Nicole Lights for a while. And in that vein a little bit, I do like, it kind of brings up an interesting thing. Like, how much did Nicole look into Wynonna and Waverly? Because she has that line, you of all people should know better than to make me question my sanity. So it's like,
right.
And she threw that right in Wynonna's face too. But
yeah, she did.
I'm wondering kind of when and how much did she really dive into Wynonna's records, because that's a juvenile record.
Right.
So it makes you kind of wonder how much research she's been doing and when she did it. Because we know she's curious about what's going on and why it seems to center around the Earps.
True. And I think we get a sense of like purgatory having that like small town, everybody talks, everybody knows each other thing. So I'm not saying that she didn't look stuff on them, but I'm saying it could have been a lot easier than, it would be in a big city, because she just had to know to ask the right people or know to let Nedley tie on a few and then ask him.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. Because we don't know much about Nicole and how she spends her days and who she talks to and stuff like that.
True.
We just know about her interactions with Waverly and now Wynonna. And we know that Nedley likes to make her work Saturday night.
Yeah.
Rude.
Nedley.
Oh my gosh. At least he's good for something. He may make Nicole work on the weekends, but at least he teaches Chrissy what to do in case of an emergency.
True.
So he's sometimes a good.
He is.
And I kind of like how Nicole seemed a little hurt at not getting an invite. And it's like, girl, you don't even know this girl. But it's still one of those, she still feels like such an outsider and stuff like that. So I kind of like that. And of course, she's got Wynonna right there. So, like I said, bro TP, I love them so much.
I think it might be one of those things too where, you're new to town and you sort of, you feel like you've got this connection to this person, but this person has all of these other relationships, that you're just not part of. And it's sort of hard to wrap your head around that, I think, because because you're always coming from it, from your own viewpoint, right? And this person is the person in town that you really want to hang out with and you really want to get to know. And they've got all these other, friends and connections and people demanding of their time and stuff like that. So I thought that worked to kind of show sort of how new she is to town,
Oh, definitely.
If she was looking forward to that horrible bachelorette, I don't know, but that worked for me. And I think I got it or identified with it because I've so often been the new kid.
Yeah. And it's kind of like that moment. It's it is that difference in this friend I consider this friend a really good friend, but I'm not kind of in the same position with them, kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's those feelings. So no, right. I totally get it. And like I said, it led to that nice moment between her and Wynonna. So I'm not going to be mad about that. Oh, the trip to the morgue though, there was a lot that they introduced here, just I guess mythology wise. You've got the Stone Witch thing, and then Wynonna's got that very interesting reaction to that photo.
Yeah.
That she, goes to grab.
Yeah.
And it kind of, she gets goosebumps and nosebleeds when she's around his quote work. That's what she said.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was interesting because it kind of a little bit reminded me, the Buffy movie with Kristy Swanson?
Yes.
You know how in that movie they kind of did that thing where it's cramps was how she knew there was a vampire around?
Yes. I've only seen that 30 times. At least.
That's kind of what the nosebleed and the goosebump thing reminded me of a little bit.
I feel you on that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it kind of made me laugh. I'm because it was interesting because this is the only Revenant that this happens with.
Right. And is it well, I don't want to talk about this too much. I have more to say in the spoiler section.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. I'm
but is it, yeah. I feel like I'm walking a really fine line with this.
Well, okay. I did want to mention that because so far we haven't seen that.
No, all good points. Yes.
It's her, vampire cramps moment.
Vampire cramps.
And I love that.
Title of the next podcast, Vampire Cramps.
Nobody steal it. I do. And I love that Wynonna brings her whiskey to the morgue. She's just walking around the police station with the bottle of whiskey, takes it to the morgue with her. Yeah.
That's her. Yeah. You gotta love her brand. You do.
It is very on brand. Appreciate it a lot. And her frantic voicemail that she leaves dolls. And then she signs off with, it's Wynonna Earp. I just love that. It makes me laugh. Her to talk about some of the morgue stuff. We got to meet the creepy morgue dude, Reggie. Who is very quiet and eats Twizzlers, which just seems weird to be eating in a morgue, but...
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe find a better place.
Yeah, I even thought it was super freaky when Dr. Maura Isles would do it, and I loved her.
Oh, that's right. She did used to do that. Yeah.
She did.
She did do that in the show.
But she just had a class that could, excuse a lot of things.
Yeah, it's just true. Yeah, Reggie doesn't quite have the Mara Isles class. He's lacking that
appeal.
Yeah, a little bit. And I mean, we've mentioned it a couple times with dolls. We got to meet Black Badge Agent Lucado.
Yes, we did.
And it's interesting that he calls her sir. He totally does that, and it's like, I don't think that's endearing you to her, dolls. I don't think you're in a position to be a
disagree.
Smartass. I don't know.
I disagree. I think that I don't think so. I think that maybe, like, I got the sense that, like, everybody calls her that.
Maybe.
And I kind of like it.
You would.
I do. I would. I know. I would.
Yeah, so we get to meet Lucado, and it's, like, messed up that not only did BBD take dolls and the Chinese food, but then Lucado is eating the Chinese food. Like, that is not
that's insult to injury.
Yeah, it's just rude. Like, it wasn't just dolls, it was Wynonna's Chinese food that he owed her. Like, I'd be hunting him down and be like, you owe me Chinese food for, like, a week. Okay, except not just a week, because I can stretch Chinese food pretty far, so it's like, you owe me all of the Chinese food. That's how that would go. Yeah, we get an interesting thing with dolls, because he's in a little bit of a pickle with BBD.
Yeah.
He's in trouble. They want results. And we get a little bit more information about why he's there, too, because he's there kind of, I don't want to call it a research mission necessarily, but he's there looking for proof, for some kind of proof. And we kind of got pieces of that, like that's how he was going to get whatever was in that file last episode by supplying them with the Revenant. But we're still, like, we get little pieces about what Black Badge is up to.
Yeah, and I mean, like, research or reconnaissance, like, whatever you want to call it, I think you're right about that. I think that's absolutely why he's there. And I think if he's not, I think it's kind of cool because it sort of speaks to, again, like, how spread out, like, BBD is. Yeah. Because she even, what does she say? Like, how's your Swedish or something like that? Like, she's going to station him somewhere else. But it's cool, too, to see that this is an organization that has deliverables and timetables and stuff like that. And if he's not producing results in a timely manner, they've literally, they're going to cut their losses in purgatory and they're going to move on because they have other things to check out, presumably.
Yeah, no, it is cool that we get a snippet that, I mean, we kind of have that little bit about Kandahar.
Mm-hmm. And is that where he was, like, where he first encountered Mikshin?
Yes, to answer your question, yes. So we do know, like, he's been in the Middle East, but, come across demons there. So it is nice to see that they're kind of like a worldwide operation.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least they're organized, and you can't blame Lucado for being like, hey, results, I want them. I feel like there was a better way than, like, kidnapping dolls, but, and the Chinese food. I'm just really salty about the Chinese food, to be honest.
You are.
Anyway, sorry, what were you going to say?
We saw a hint of how Doc and the Stone Witch are connected toward the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. Like, he takes that shot at her, and then, he starts touching his shoulder after that, and then before he finds the abandoned patrol card, he has an open wound on his shoulder, and it's the same place he shot Constance.
It is interesting that it seems like that wound opened significantly later than, like, it took a while until he, like, picked up the knife and stuff like that. Like, before he, like, touched it for it to actually show up. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, it looks like when Doc injured Constance, he gets injured. So that seems to be an answer to the question Waverly asked, because she asks him, like, why would she make you immortal only to pop you in the bottom of this well?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So it does kind of start to answer that question as to why Doc ended up in the well. Yeah, she seems a little vindictive, but...
Doesn't she?
I mean, to be fair, it seems that Wyatt Earp did kill her sons, so getting revenge, seems reasonable enough, but yeah. And we get confirmation that her sons are not fully human.
Yeah, Yep.
So don't really know what they are.
This is, I thought it was so funny that Rev that's sent to get the skull just totally goes along with the striptease while he's like figuring out how to get what he came for.
Yeah.
Like that is work ethic.
Well, I mean, and he wasn't a revenant though. I think he was just like an enthralled human or something.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, think about it, because Waverly kills him. Well, I mean, I guess you can still kill a revenant, they just come back. But
yeah,
it seems
yeah,
like
no, you're right.
Yeah, so he just struck me as more, well, he wouldn't have been a revenant anyway, he couldn't go on the Earp land.
You're absolutely right.
No, I had to correct myself though, because they can like take out revenants for a little bit. They just can't actually like they quote die or whatever. Some of them we've seen that
right.
like with Big John who got blown up in the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
The thing though, I hate watching that striptease thing though, because it's so awkward. Like it's it's just an awkward scene. It just like I don't know. I don't love that like that little scene there, just because it's I don't know. But yeah, I mean, he does kind of go with it, and he gets, scissored for his efforts.
He does. Scissored a stripper.
I mean, I know we're not there yet, but we're talking about it. I love how Melanie delivers that line. What do you mean you scissored a stripper? Like,
yeah.
Or you killed a stripper, that's what it is. What do you mean you killed a stripper? I love that line so much, and because her delivery is great. Mm-hmm. So I had to mention that since we were kind of talking about it. But it's interesting because, like, okay, so enthralled human, that's what we're rolling with, I guess. It was interesting to me that, like, her lackeys couldn't cross that salt circle that Maddie had. Like, she had to use them to do certain things, but, like, they couldn't cross the salt that Maddie had set up. I'm assuming so, because otherwise she would have sent them in after her.
To just drag her out. Yeah, yeah. And the salt was a little tough for me, because presumably the reason that they could not cross, right, would be because she's currently enthralling or has some kind of an enchantment on them, right? That's presumably the reason why they couldn't go do that. But Maddie and the Stone Witch were able to hurt each other using their magic on opposite sides of the salt. So that whole thing, I was like, okay, well, like that didn't really land. Like, what are the rules for that then?
That's the thing about the salt thing, because I thought the whole idea behind salt was that it was supposed to be like a protective thing anyway, like a protective circle. But I am a little rusty on some stuff like that. And I think everybody has slightly different rules, because for some people it's like the salt just protects you. Like stuff can still come and get you and stuff like stuff can still like be thrown in or whatever. And in some rules it's not necessarily a protective circle in the same way like a protective spell would be. So yeah, I mean, that was a little, because she had to, like, they could hurt each other, but she still had to coax Maddie out and everything like that. So yeah, the use of salts is a little questionable.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. It's just the rules didn't seem very consistent to me. I'm not bashing anybody or anything like that, but like watching it, even the first time I remember seeing that and just being like, well, okay, so what are we going with here? Because like you said, there are, like different mythologies for, or sets of rules or whatever you'd like to call it, surrounding a ritual like that. So I was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know how we're going with this.
Yeah, and it's like every time I watch it, my mind always goes to Hocus Pocus and that scene where they get the Morton salt that says, like she reads off of it, can be used to protect witches, or like jokingly kind of reads off. But no, it's like my mind always goes to Hocus Pocus whenever I watch this with the salt. It's like, because I think that's like the major, like, oh, you need salt to protect yourself from witches. Like, that's one of the things that, like, everybody who, like, has seen that movie would probably remember at least that part of it. Like,
full disclosure, I was absolutely thinking about Hocus Pocus.
Right, exactly. Like, that's what you was when it's the salt and the witches thing, because literally it's not like it's in any, I cannot think of any other canon where the salt, like, off the top of my head, I'm sure if I sat here and really thought about it, where it's specifically salt and witches. like salt will protect you from like witches. That's literally the only thing that comes to mind is Hocus Pocus.
Did they use it in The Craft?
Not that I know of, no.
Maybe not. Well, I'm not going to, I don't want to start making things up. But yeah, I also went there in my head.
Yeah, I don't think so because it's, because they also, most places, like protective spells and stuff like that. Yeah. And like wards and stuff like that. But I don't specifically like a circle of salt. You don't see often because I think it's also frequently used for demons in like mythology with demons and stuff like that. So that was your very lengthy.
We had feelings about the salt, okay?
I didn't know I had that many feelings about the salt.
It is my fault. I instigated all of this.
It would have come up a little bit, but yeah. See, I don't take extensive notes. A lot of this stuff just comes out when I'm talking. It's not like I have salt rant in my notes. It just happened. So sorry, not sorry about that, guys. We got some interesting stuff in this episode, definitely. And I like that Constance draws herself a protective triangle, not a circle.
Yeah.
Because triangles are are used a lot of times with magic and stuff like that too.
This is like super random, but it's still sort of like in the mythical realm. And I thought it was absolutely hilarious, but I'm sure I'm reaching here, you guys. Waverly, in this episode, she was wearing an opal stone around her neck, which, funnily enough, opals were believed to have, or are believed, I'm sorry, I shouldn't disparage people's beliefs like that, but present tense, opals are believed to have strong therapeutic value for diseases of the eye. And couple that with all of the eye blood in this episode, and I just thought it was hilarious work by the costume department. But I also, like, when the opal is worn as an amulet, opals are said to make the wearer immune from diseases, as well as increase the powers of the eyes and the mind.
Huh. I did not know that. I knew there were, like, you mentioned some stuff about opals, and I'm like, oh yeah, some of that seems vaguely familiar, but yeah, I didn't know that, because my mind keeps going to, like, Harry Potter and, like, Baldur's Gate and stuff like that, as far as the usage of different gems and stuff to, like, ward off. Well, no, because my mind immediately, like, went to Harry Potter, because the cursed necklace is an opal necklace. Anyway, that aside, yeah, that's interesting, though. I didn't catch that. I did catch that, in case you didn't know, this is the episode where they pretty much froze Dominique because she's in that outfit outside in the middle of Canadian winter. And you can see her breath so many times when she's outside. But yeah, I think it came up in like a panel or an interview somewhere where it is mentioned that they like froze Dom, basically. Like she was so cold. Yeah, because it's just, I mean, look at what they put her in. Poor person. Like just, I'd be so sad. Because it is, I mean, it's gotta be cold, and they were filming at night. So yeah, I mean, thank you, wardrobe department, because once again we get the little like crop toppy, like we get the little cutout for the abs. So Thank you, wardrobe department, but also like please give her clothes for outside. It's winter in Canada.
Yeah.
Oh, one of the things I totally meant to mention about the salt thing is I do enjoy Waverly using the salt grinder to put salt at the entrances.
That was cute.
Just like, that would take so long to do. It's like, hold on. I gotta grind some salt first. For all of the doors and windows.
Just a sprinkling.
Yeah, you don't need that much, but it just makes me laugh every time I see her do it. Oh, we did get a little tidbit about the Earp homestead. Apparently they don't go upstairs where the bedrooms are.
Yeah.
Which begs the question, where have Waverly and Wynonna been sleeping? Couch? Both of them?
Floor?
It's kind of messed up, though.
Armchair.
I mean, I kind of get it. I like how you're just naming furniture now.
I am. I'm just going.
Table.
Closet. I don't know.
Oh, Waverly might spend some time in the closet. Who knows?
Heyo.
Hey. Yeah, so I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Did we mention the spade thing with the Revenant? That the last of the seven, has the spade on his cane, and that's what attracted Wynonna to that. The victim, the one person, because she had that burn.
Yeah, Joyce Arbor. And then she wound up with the Jack of Spades in her mouth, the card.
Yep. Yeah, we didn't talk about that. I meant to put that. Yeah. We've got a little bit of the seventh is going to be an interesting revenant, it seems. He's getting a better setup than the other ones have.
True, yeah.
He's got the nifty spade thing going on. He's going around burning people. He apparently gives Wynonna nosebleeds and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, okay, you didn't get straight up our standard, last episode we lost a scalp. But does it count? We did have a victim whose organs were removed and put back. So that kind of counts.
Yeah, but it was so late in the episode, I know. I do like to get my body parts in before the credits. That's the rule that I set for myself. That's the only thing.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a way to not make a joke about that. But no, I'm just saying, it kind of partially counts. You get partial credit for that because it's still gruesome. And I know how much you enjoy the gruesome.
Yeah, I mean, between that and the eye blood, I feel like I'm covered.
Probably. You and your twisted brain. No, just kidding.
Girl, wait till we get to the spoiler section.
I know. I do love some of the little stuff in this episode, like the skull on the how Waverly put the skull on the mantle and stuff like that. Her smashing the skull at the end is such a badass move.
Yeah.
I love that.
Now nobody
so
gets
much.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great. Also, I don't know, it seems like such a, the way you said that, now nobody gets it. It's such a sibling thing to do. It's break the thing that you all want. It's fine.
Yeah.
Or it's actually what a parent would do or something like that. It's take it away so nobody else can have it. But yeah, it's such a badass move. So I had to make sure we mentioned that and gave props to Waverly and the skull. And Doc, there's some Doc stuff I didn't talk about. Been all over the place. See, I got too excited talking about Nicole and Waverly, and then I just kind of went all over the place. I kind of love that he calls Waverly a gunslinger. He includes her in that when he mentions gunslingers. And then he has a lot of little moments. I think we kind of mentioned that a little bit, him singing Boomerang too when he's leaving.
Yeah.
And there's one thing that kind of if he knows that his thing with Bobo, his parlay, as he put it, with Bobo has ended and stuff like that. And he's got Revs after him because he's been helping the heir. Why is he in the triangle? Why wouldn't he try to camp outside of the triangle? Or see about, Pride we already know that Pride got in the way of him being on the Earp homestead. But why was he in the triangle?
I think it's a combination of two things. I think what he says at the end of the episode, that the witch is the only, killing her is the only thought that, kept him going in that well, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think he wants to be as close to his enemy as possible. And I think after having spent time with the Earps, I don't think leaving them alone, whether he's I got to stay out of this, to Wynonna in the beginning or not, he doesn't. He goes to the homestead. He gets right in it. You know what I mean? It's one thing to say that, it's another thing to put it in practice. So I think it's a combination of wanting to be close to the object of his revenge, and then after he gets to know the Earp sisters, wanting to be near enough to protect and help them.
Yeah. Still, but it's have some level of self-preservation, man. Oh, we did get another tiny bit of information about Waverly. She did mention that she's a Virgo.
She did. And I joked earlier, anybody who listened to us during the second season, I joked about how I wanted to do a Zodiac centered, a recap episode kind of a thing, or that whether if we actually got everyone's zodiacs, that I would like to weigh in on that, because I do love astrology, but So we did get Waverly's. We know that she's a Virgo. I'm a happily single Virgo with hair for days.
Yes.
And I don't want to get too deep in it because people get really defensive of their astrological signs, and I get that. I'm a fire sign. It makes total sense to me. But I do love Virgo for Waverly because they're they're a sign that pays attention to detail. They're by and large very methodical, practical, well-organized, and tender-hearted people. So I thought it was just really perfect for them. And the whole, you know, like the source of the name, like Virgo, and the imagery tied to it, like the Virgin in the garden, they're also noted for having this, like, this sort of, whatever they're feeling, they feel it as though they're feeling it for the first time. And we get a lot of that with Waverly too. She's a very passionate person.
Intense. Everything's like intense.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. Yeah, I knew you were excited about it, so I had to make sure I mentioned it. And gave you some opportunity for some astrology.
I appreciate that. I'm just trying to walk a really fine line with Virgos. My mom's a Virgo, so I know the challenging personality traits of Virgos too. So we're just gonna tiptoe and just say nice things.
And with that, no, that was a lot of what I had on my list. That wasn't a spoiler. I did have just a random note. I started a Lost Girl rewatch recently, and I just got to episodes with Massimo, like the really heavy Massimo's being a jerk. Spoiler for those who haven't seen Lost Girl. You should definitely go and watch Lost Girl. But yeah, I definitely just got to the part where, you know, he's really being terrible. Yeah. And going from that and then watching Wynonna Earp and watching Tim play Doc, it really messes you up.
Yeah, like, it does.
I turned, because I was watching Wynonna and I'm just like, oh my God, why? Because you can't unsee it after it after you've watched them kind of. So yeah, going back and forth between Lost Girl and Wynonna Earp is a little bit of it messes you up a little bit.
You and I talked about that too. You said that you were, you know, watching you were having a Lost Girl rewatch, and that you had gotten to the scenes with Tim as Massimo. And I told you that when the casting was announced and we were all talking about this show on Twitter, we were getting excited. We were ready to live tweet it. I remember reading, you know, like seeing his face and, you know, hearing that he was cast as Doc Holliday. And he did such a good job being so despicable and so as Massimo, that I was just, I was like not excited about it. I was like, oh, it's this guy. Like, and it was no reflection on Tim whatsoever, except that, you know, he's a very talented actor who really made me dislike him. So it is funny to do that. And when you brought that up to me, I told you, I was like, I was actually super apprehensive about watching him on this show. Oh yeah. I thought he was going to creep me out. Yeah.
And it's so hard. Like I said, if y'all haven't watched Lost Girl, you need to, and especially like, it's so hard to kind of reconcile that in your head. You're like, okay, this is Doc Holliday. Even though I watched Lost Girl first, but it's still one of those, like, you watch Lost Girl and then go to Wynonna Earp and then you rewatch Lost Girl, and that's what it really, like, messes you up. You're like, oh, damn. So I just had to mention that. There was a couple moments watching where I was just like, I was like shaking my head. I'm like, nope. But yeah, no, Tim does an excellent job. I love him as Doc, and he's so good at being awful as Massimo. That was like my last random note. And I know I say that all the time. I swear I like try to wrap up and go to quotes like 3 times whenever we record before I finally get there. All right. So we can swing into quotes.
Quotes!
Of which there are many, as per usual.
There are.
And I forgot to clear out the ones we already mentioned.
I did get mine cleared out. One of my favorites that we have not mentioned yet is, dude, this is a morgue. Wear a bell or something.
Yes. That one's good. I mean, there were so many like really funny lines as per usual, like when Doc gets ambushed by John in the beginning. And he's like, I had him right where I wanted him. And Wynonna's like, on top of you?
I had that one too. I also really love Stephanie's, which is funny because I hate Stephanie, but she had a great line when she said, your murder house reception is balls.
Yeah. We mentioned it, but didn't specifically mention the line. But when she talks about this is the lamest engagement party in history, and he's like, and Doc's like, well, a hostess is only as good as her company, and it's so great. Doc Shade is my favorite.
It's because it's so polite.
Yeah.
Or it's like, it's so eloquent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so great. When the, enthralled stripper dude picks up Waverly and Chrissy yells, put her down, and Steph yells, that is not sexy.
Yeah.
She actually, as terrible as she is, she had a couple of good lines.
She did. All fairness.
Yeah. Yeah, and Waverly's just going off on Stephanie is so great. Like, just lets her have it, and I just love it. The entire thing is so great.
It was excellent, though. Yeah, it was excellent.
It's good.
I think Your Ass's Top Shelf is, like, deserving of a repeat. Like, just so everybody knows that we included it. Yes, it's one of our favorite lines
it's so
ever.
Great. And it does, one of the things, and I've mentioned it before, is this is another moment that kind of, they allow Nicole to be, like, they toe that line with Nicole, like, not being predatory and stuff like that. Because, like, and this is another one of the examples of that, like, she can freely say something like that, and it plays off really well, and it's still in a friendly thing, and Wynonna's just, like, doesn't have a negative reaction to it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I really appreciate about that moment. And it's kind of, because as a queer woman, I think sometimes it's so hard to navigate things with straight women, like one-on-one interactions, when you're kind of in that, do they know I'm queer? Do they not know I'm queer? Is this, like, did they just find out? Because then you're, like, rethinking everything that you say.
Yeah.
And I like how they did this with Nicole. I like that it was just like, hey, they're hanging out. She just said this, it's fine. Like, it's not something that was taken a wrong way.
Right.
Because it wasn't. Like, it was just like, hey, I'm going to compliment you and I'm a little tipsy. Like, so I love the top shelf line just because it's a top shelf line.
Yeah.
But,
and it's just women being women together. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, so I appreciate that too. So
that's my emotional queer moment. Oh, I like Wynonna calling Nicole a walking bumper sticker.
I do too.
It's like dude, you're like a walking bumper sticker. Who's armed? Waverly should be hanging out with you. Because we did talk a little bit about Nicole's line there, how Waverly spent her whole life tailoring who she is to the people she's with. But yeah, I like how Wynonna's response to that is to call her a walking bumper sticker. Oh, say pomegranate if someone's got a gun on you.
Yeah.
That one's another good one.
I forgot about that.
Oh, I love it. It's so great. I like, once again, Mel's delivery with, also I'm scared mine might be dead when talking about bosses and stuff like that. I enjoy her delivery with a lot of the stuff she says.
Yeah.
And telling Red.
And how afterwards she just, like, waves it off. She's like, whatever.
It's fine.
Drinks, yeah.
Yeah, and when, like, the morgue dude, Reggie, introduces himself and says he's the unlucky SOB who has to make sure the dead don't rise again, and Wynonna's like, you suck at your job, and then, like, kind of brushes it off.
Yeah.
I love that moment with Waverly and Doc kind of at the end, where they're talking about him loving Wynonna, and he's like, he tries to brush it off, and she looks at him and she's like, there, you want to know what your tell at poker is? Simple. You're always, always lying. And she's, like, really upset when she tells him that. So
yeah,
I kind of like, it's another, like, she's willing to call him out on a scrap, but she's still, like, really upset by it,
Yeah.
That it's like, you're full of crap, and, like, I'm aware of it. And that makes it so much worse when you're aware of stuff like that. And the person, like, thinks they're pulling one over on you, but they're totally not. It's, like, so much worse. And then I just had one more. Waverly's line, haven't you read a romance novel lately? Heroes always win.
Yeah, that was sweet.
I had to mention that because the hopeless optimistic and hopeless romantic in me just really appreciated that. Because I do appreciate that side of Waverly. So, that was all I had. As per usual, my list is lengthy. Any other ones that weren't mentioned?
No, the rest of mine's for the spoiler section.
Excellent. Yeah, I've got one more quote that's going to get popped into the spoiler section, so we might have the same one. Actually, I'm most certain we do. Well, was there anything else we wanted to get in to the spoiler-free section?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Alrighty. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the spoiler-free section and go ahead and tell you where you can find us. Lara, where can they find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at RS Mayfair.
Excellent. And then you can find me on Twitter at CMeushaw. That's at CMEUSHAW. You can find the podcast at 4YE_MYP podcast. And you can find the general 4YE Twitter, which is the site that we write for, at 4_Y_E. And those are both with the number 4. So make sure you give us a follow. Our DMs are open. So if you have a general question or a comment or anything like that you don't want to tweet directly at us, our DMs are open. We do enjoy discussions with you all, or if we miss something, please tell us, or if I mess something up, Lord knows sometimes I misspeak or mess something up. So feel free to correct me. I don't mind. But with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, and hopefully I know we've been a little off track with having, episodes every other and then every week, but our next episode is episode 8, where we pick up from that cliffhanger that we kind of glossed over, but, we're not really sure everything's okay with Nicole.
Right. We don't know.
We could be dealing with a buried gay. We don't know. We kind of glossed over that. Well, we did.
Don't do that to people.
What? I didn't do anything. Anyway, with that, this is your warning. So if you're turning it off now because you don't want to be spoiled, because we're about to go into our spoiler section. So if you don't turn it off now, you're going to get spoiled. This is your fair warning. So if you are leaving us, then thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
If you are not leaving us, then bear with us. We will have a minor pause before we get into our spoiler section. Alrighty, so for those of you who stuck around, once again, this is our spoiler section. There will be spoilers for the rest of Season 1 and Season 2, and we will also bring anything from Season 3 that we may have heard about. I do not think we have any news items since last week's episode, but like I said, we still might bring any sort of fun speculation in as we go. So, if you are here, that means you're going to get spoiled. Lara, where do you want to start?
I have been...
Sorry, that sounded a little bit more harsh than I meant it.
Laura, go! Right now. No, I have been sitting on this, the whole, we didn't talk about Joyce Arbor in the morgue or the spade-shaped burn, hardly at all. And that's because we really can't. Since the unseen Rev in this episode is the Jack of Knives, who is Jack the Ripper, and he's not revealed at all in this episode, or at least not blatantly at all. So there really wasn't an easy way to tiptoe around that. But yeah, so it's never expressly right. Stated, but the Jack of Knives is heavily alluded to being Jack the Ripper. We see all of that in the next episode. We'll talk about it again. I'm not going to get too far into it here. But I really appreciated Nicole's comment to Wynonna that the victim in the morgue, again, Joyce Arbor, looks like Wynonna. Because Jack the Ripper was a well-known serial killer. So it was a subtle nod to true crime buffs to have him murdering women who bear a physical resemblance to Wynonna. It's a serial killer hallmark, though I don't think the Ripper chose his victims based on looks. It was mainly demographic profile. But the victims of a serial killer usually have something in common. It's gender, appearance, race, or demographic profile, like I said. So that's what you do for a living or where you live. Mm-hmm. And it's also said that Joyce is victim number 3 of this unsub, and serial killers are usually categorized as such by the presence of 3 or more victims with a cooling off period in between. So that was really nice. And then there's the organ removal, which is consistent with the Whitechapel murders attributed to the Ripper. Though the Ripper didn't keep his victims alive; he cut their throats first. But all around, it's. I mean, just a round of applause to the writers for this episode and for managing to work that much in with a victim or with a killer that's not revealed in this episode. You know what I mean? Like, they build all of this up and you never see the guy and you don't get the answer at all. So that was just expert work.
Yes, and thank you for that info dump. And I'm sure we'll go a little bit farther into it too, because Jack the Ripper is kind of an interesting case. So any excuse to talk about it a little bit as well. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And I think I am going to mention, the downside to doing this spoiler free, I think, and having the knowledge is it did lead us to handling this episode a certain way, like not discussing the fact that Nicole and Wynonna disappeared at the end. Yeah. And not really discussing too much about the victim and stuff like that, because it's very hard to toe a line. So, I think this is the first episode where we've really had that problem.
I think,
where it was a little bit difficult. So I'm thankful that we have this section here that we can talk about it. But I do acknowledge that it seems like I know to anybody who may have just been listening to the spoiler free section, it seems like maybe we left out a significant chunk, but it was within reason. Yeah. Cause it's what you said. It's hard to toe that line and really talk about, there was a lot of information. They did do kind of a lot of subtle nods to the Ripper.
And just heavy foreshadowing. I honestly, it's exactly what you said. I honestly did not think or did not trust that I could get into this and not just go full. Serial killers are my jam anyway. Murder, you know me. I'm a huge true crime buff. So I really just, I'm sorry for that, you guys, but I was really holding out for the spoiler section on this one.
I mean, and like I said, it was just I know I joked about the buried gaze thing with Nicole and Wynonna disappearing at the end too, but that makes it hard. And I have to say, with Nicole and Wynonna, going poof, honestly, this is the last episode. Episode 7 is the last episode that I watched live for the first time. Because after that ending, where they gave that tease as to, is she dead? We had gotten an email about screener access and interviews. And I had been like, oh no, I'm not gonna request it. I requested a screener after watching episode 7 because I had to know if Nicole was okay.
Yeah.
And I watched it pretty immediately.
Yeah.
It also led to me being able to interview Melanie Scrofano, but I watched it as soon as I had it. And I think it was only a couple of days ahead of when the episode was actually airing. But yeah, it's because of that cliffhanger. So it's not we glossed over it because it's hard to and in our heads, it doesn't feel as big now because we know where it goes. I think that's also a thing. Yeah. It's we know she's okay. So we don't have that panic.
And that's hard to manufacture, it would just be too transparent. So I'm not going to do it.
It's for some things it's easy to do. I have a spoiler free Xena podcast that, it's very easy for some things to be oh, well, I don't know what's happening here, but this was a little more difficult. Yeah. So thanks to you guys who's sticking around for this part of it. But I really like episode 8 as well. And this is such a good lead in to that episode.
Yeah, it is.
Too. With that Wynonna storyline there. It's such a great lead in because I really like episode 8 and I'm really looking forward to getting into it. So I'm so glad you had your Jack the Ripper foreshadowing anecdotes ready.
Yeah.
And I am so looking forward to an extended conversation next time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was just going to preface that with, we're not done yet. It's probably going to come up in the next one too, but yeah.
It's all right. So yeah, that was definitely an interesting case that they gave us with this one. So what sorry, I was trying to decide where I wanted to go next because I don't have a good spoiler to lead from the Jack the Ripper bit. Oh my God, you made it hard.
No, I kind of have a segue.
Good.
So, and I think you're gonna want to jump in on this too, but this show really has something to say about steering clear of dorky white dudes. We're going to talk, yeah. No, they really do. Like, they went in hard on season 2 with that, and I don't know that I noticed really. No, I did. Yeah, I noticed the first time that I watched this too. Like, Dr. Reggie, who seems so earnest and well-meaning at first with his, lame dad jokes and all that stuff. He's so nefarious, and in the next episode, he's revealed to be working in concert with the Jack of Knives, aka number 7 of the 7, aka Jack the Ripper. So, but yeah, I just kind of, I guess because of everything that we saw, in season 2, this really just stood out to me, and I was like, oh man, like, they are just planting these dangerous, benign white guys, like, ooh.
Which is completely okay because, statistically.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm like, wow, like, they're going there. You know what I mean? Like.
Oh yeah, I enjoy it too. Because he is kind of, like, he's just set up as that weird dude. But you gotta stay away from the weird ones.
Yeah, too, just so smiley with his dead eyes, and that was, I kept like focusing on that in this episode. I was like, he has dead eyes.
I didn't even because I swear it's become a reaction to not pay attention to white dudes on screen.
I dig it.
For the most part. There's some that are an exception, but yeah, so I do enjoy the setup for Reggie as well. It's a really good lead-in for the next episode while not being a filler episode.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't talk about also the fact that Skull bit got kind of wrapped up here, but kind of. And, we talked a little bit about Maddie, gone too soon. And, the fan love that she got caused them to bring the actress back.
Yeah.
Rachel and Cheryl. I had to think of. So they actually brought her back for season 2 because fans were kind of upset about, the death of the blacksmith. So I appreciated that, although it is a shame. I still prefer Maddie over her sister because I do think she was definitely killed off too soon. I think she could have been a good character, and I really wish they hadn't killed her.
Yeah, I think so too. Her sister's not really a substitute to me, but we'll see. We'll see.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Right. Maybe they'll have a third one. No.
Triplets. No, I'm
so I wanted to mention that. Yeah. And then in the same vein with Maddie, she tells Doc, if Constance unites with Scattered, she will let the revenants of Wynonna Earp loose and set them free of the Ghost River Triangle. And I had a question about that. Because is it more of a, because the way she said it sounded like Constance will be, the one setting free the Ghost River Triangle. But as we know, Constance getting the skull back and reuniting those bones that Bobo's been collecting fulfills Bobo's end of the bargain. She will then return the lead to him, Willow, and then he will set the revenants free. So I thought that was kind of an interesting setup there, because we're given the impression that it is all Constance, even though we know that Bobo's doing something for her. So I thought I was kind of interested, how much did Maddie know? Did Maddie know all about the deal with Bobo? Or did she just know that Constance would be responsible for revenants being set loose in the triangle?
And sticking with Maddie for a second, you and I talked earlier in the episode about how she says, Waverly is going to be the one who defeats the Stone Witch. She says that. And, that kind of brings up, we were also talking a whole lot about how other characters see her. And I almost said something about Waverly's darkness. I almost did, but I caught myself. But I thought that was really interesting that Maddie makes no mention of it whatsoever. And, she immediately picks up on Dolls. She kind of tweaks with him and knows what's up. She goes through this entire episode, this, whole spell with Waverly and everything. And in the end, she drags herself to the homestead to be able to warn her and everything. So I thought that was really, really neat that, the blacksmith made no mention of a darkness in Waverly at all. So the question is, did she see it, or did she just, maybe she just understood what she saw? She clearly saw something in Waverly, and I wish I knew what that was.
Yeah, or like maybe it's an understanding that whatever darkness Waverly has, Waverly is a person who will overcome it. Like, she can also see the very strong inherent goodness in her as well.
Yeah. True, yeah. And maybe she could see that, you know, Dolls was really struggling against it, and that's why it came up.
Yeah, maybe. And I kind of wanted to, speaking of Dolls and Waverly's darkness and all that stuff, Dolls had that line when he's talking about Doc, you know, you don't become immortal by making deals with angels, you have to go to the other guys for that. So once again, we get another angel reference. Kind of a casual angel reference, so I wanted to mention that. But yeah, it is interesting the way people talk about Waverly, because it's not as one note as the way people talk about Wynonna. I had a couple more notes, so they're pretty small. When Constance, we see Constance use her blade a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it glows blue.
Yeah, like her eyes.
When she burns Maddie. Yeah, and the blade glows blue when she burns Maddie, and then when she raises people from the dead. And it's a very familiar looking blue for those of us who have seen the series, because it's that lovely blue that Peacemaker turned when Willow was shot and when Rosita's shot.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of mention it. Maybe it's something, maybe it's a relation to the magic that Peacemaker has, especially considering one of the times it glowed blue. I mean, Constance was raising people from the dead. And you know, Peacemaker is sending the dead back to hell and stuff like that. So there is, you know, I don't know.
That's neat, and kind of staying along that line, it makes me wonder what that dagger's made out of.
Well, because it's got a bone handle, but yeah, we're not quite sure, because we still don't know what magic Peacemaker is. We know what it's made of, but we don't know really what magic. And, you know, if Constance is using, you know, magic to raise people from the dead, I don't want to call it black magic or like dark magic.
Yeah.
Because it has kind of a weird connotation with it that I've become aware of, but not friendly magic. So it's definitely interesting. So I wanted to note that, just that, you know, we do see it glow blue, and it's the same blue we see Peacemaker glow. It's the same color.
And just really quick, and I'm going to get right off this train. I'm going to hop on, and I'm going to hop right back off. But the circle of salt thing really bothers me, because we know that Constance ends up like buried in the salt flats, like up to her neck, because presumably she can't use her powers to escape that way. So that just, that bummed me out.
It also, she seemed to require the knife to use her powers.
Oh.
This episode.
That's neat.
Well, I mean, did you notice that episode, like, when she was doing, like, the heavy stuff, she had to pull out her knife.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, she, you know, and we saw her, like, we've seen her do basic stuff, but in order to, like, really make Maddie parched, she had to pull out her knife. You know, in order to raise the dead, she had to pull out her knife.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So she does, I guess technically you would call it an athame, because she seems to be drawing some sort of power with it, and it is, as a tool, is her tool as a witch. So I guess technically it would probably be an athame. So that was my bad.
Yeah.
Correct myself at some point. But yeah, so I did want to mention that, just because it was, I wanted to note just that stuff as I catch it. Because I don't think I've paid too much attention to it glowing blue, but now I'm in the part of a rewatch where I'm like overanalyzing everything.
Hey, that's blue.
Yeah, it's blue. What does it mean?
Yeah, it's a good point though. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. And I only had one more item on my list, and that's just a random. We get to see Willow's room, which again we didn't talk about in our spoiler-free section. And that room later becomes Waverly's.
Yeah.
That's the same room that becomes Waverly's. And I still have questions about, if Waverly got Willow's room, did Waverly not have a room? Like, I'm still stuck on that question. Where did Waverly sleep? I'm very concerned about this, and I know I have mentioned it before.
Under the stairs.
Oh. Harry Potter
Basement.
is. It's so sad.
Shed.
Stop just listening.
Fireplace. No, I'm listing because I genuinely don't know. Yeah.
No, I know. Attic. But that was all that I had on my list for the spoiler stuff.
That's it for mine too.
Excellent. So that's all that we have then, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. So thanks to everyone who stuck around for our spoiler bit. If you have thoughts, let us know. Like I said, our DMs are open. Feel free to tweet us. We both see it and respond at some point. Usually Lara gets to it before I do. But we both do see it, and we try to respond to people. So do let us know if there's, something that you caught that we didn't, or if you've got thoughts or, feelings about salt. Who knows? Just let us know. I'm interested.
Me too.
We do this to talk about the show, so gotta get through hiatus somehow. But thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will be with you next week.
Thanks, guys.